Okay guys, so we're back, and so now I'm going to show you how the app actually works in order to complement the presentation. But first of all, I wanted to show you these two sites, which is first of all the GitHub of Professor Joachim, and as you can see, it has the source code of PlotsOfData and how to run it either on their site or you can do it locally. Here it has the instructions on it. So it's not a very complicated issue. Okay, that's one of them, and the other one is these the Shiny apps of the Molecular Cytology Lab, which is the lab where Professor Joachim works. And as you can see here, they have several of these programs, like the PlotsOfData, which is the one we're going to see, but they have some others: Plot Twist, ggplotter, Super PlotsOfData, Plots of Differences, and so on. They are also very interesting to see. I especially recommend ggplotter because this one not only allows a lot more customization than PlotsOfData, but also shows the code on how it generates the charts. Okay, so let's get into our matter at hand. So the PlotsOfData website, Shiny Apps, looks like this. We have at least 3 sections here that we would like to discuss. The left side, which has controls, a top tab, which has, again, what do we want to see, and a work area, which is what we actually are showing. Now, in this case, as we talked before, we can use data in wide format or tidy format, and if we actually click here in this show information on data format, we will see the summary and how they should behave. So we can actually decide which one of them is better. So example 1 has data in wide format. In example 2 has the same data but in a tidy format, as you can see here. Also, we could upload the CSV files, and let's say I have one here which has a bunch of chromosomes from a fish, but when I say a bunch, is literally a bunch. This is actually I'm going to tell you 25,000 data. So I'm not going to use this one because it's actually too large, but we could use it. We could also, again, paste data here in this text box or provide it as a URL. For now, let's just use the tidy example data. Okay. Now, as that is, we can then inspect the data here. We could search for stuff. This search is actually exact match, so it's not that pretty, but let's say if we want to find this, if this area is repeated somewhere else, we could just paste it here, and okay, bad luck, it doesn't, but we could try to find some other information that might be repeated, that might be interesting for us to find out. Okay, let me sort it and let's see if a couple of data here pops up. I'm guessing it's not that common, so let's just give it. So let's go into the plots. So the plot here will again change the controls on the left, and here we have a bunch of options to how to download it. Okay. Now it says that there is an error because we haven't actually shown anything still, but it will get fixed soon. So here this error shows because we haven't chosen what to display in the plot. So when we come back here at data upload, we need to check that these data are tidy. And here we can check then conditions to compare. So let's say we're going to compare, for instance, the conditions against the concentration. Now when we move to the plot, then we see how the data is displayed. So this is the most basic one. And the advantage here is that you will see the plot will be generated automatically. So we can choose a quasi-random offset for the data so they are not all bunched together. This will show us, as we said earlier, the distribution shape. Or we can use our completely random. We can use none of them. And if we have a small amount of data, we can actually just leave the dots. But in this case, it doesn't look that good. So let's stay with the quasi-random. And here we can change, as we said, the visibility of the data. This will change how opaque or transparent the data dots are, as you can see here. So usually, since we are interested in the data, but also on the shapes, let's leave this one as a quarter. And then we can add one of those statistics that we want to help us summarize this. So the median or the average, and as you can see the bar moves showing the different values. We can also put a box plot there. And remember, in the box plot, the middle line is the mean, the top line is the third quartile, the bottom one is the first quartile, and the other ones show the data range. As you can see, actually, they're on the dots as well. Or we can use a Violin plot. Again, the Violin plot will show us the distribution of it, even if we choose something as random to visualize it, or none of it. Again, it just matches better when it's at quasi-random, right? And we can add these 95% confidence interval, and it will be shown as that bar that just showed up here. Okay. Again, we can change the visibility, the transparency of these things, and set them as whatever we want. Let's keep it in a higher degree. Okay. And we can actually change the condition of the order of these conditions. Okay, so this is as they come in the file, but we may want to see them by their median value or in alphabetical order, which is actually the same as the median value, but that's just a funny coincidence. Now, as I said, since most of our screens are wide, maybe using a rotated plot would be better. I wouldn't like to change the grid, but we could. And in this case, this is one of the interesting things, we can change the scale. Now you see there is a big outlier here that it's kind of bothering the rest of the scheme. We could actually change the scale of our chart and leave that guy outside and of course state it later. But we can plot, let's say, up to 300 instead of the 500 and something that now has. So here I'm gonna say plot from 0 to 300. And as you can see, the chart gets stretched a bit, and especially the data that was left from the outlier is removed, and more coverage for the real or the actual data that we are interested in is shown. We can use colors for it. Again, there's a bunch of palettes here that can be used as whatever we like, or we can define them again with colors or with HTML codes. We can say I want red, greens, and blues, for instance, the most basic thing. We can use a dark theme if you want to switch the colors back, but I actually don't see, at least for printed media, a lot of use on that, right? So we can use colors for the data, and we can use also colors for the statistics. And here is where the transparencies kind of play in our favor. See, because if I change the transparency here, then I can kind of see the coverage of it, but also I can see the dots of data. And this actually looks very nice for a publication here. Okay. What else can we do? We can actually change the size of the chart, because this is like one of the default sizes, but I would actually like a bigger thing. For instance, I know my screen is like 700 height, so I can change this to maybe 600 and it would look okay. And there is a bit of a bug here. As you can see, if I choose 800, the data goes outside of the range of the screen and doesn't look, you cannot see it. But actually when you download it in either format, the data is actually there, so it's not that bad. But let's leave it at 600 or 500 was it, I think. 550, let's say. Okay. And since we have a wide screen, then let's not use that, but let's use twice as it. 900, even 900 could be. So now we can see the data much better. We can add a title to it, right, as whatever we would like. Concentration versus conditions. We can again change label sizes, put them, change the size, change the font if we would like either the font on the label or on the categories here. Let's not mess with that for now. And this is one of the things that I wanted to show you, the description on it. So I need to change this back a second just so you guys can see it. But as you can see here, the description says graph that shows the data as jittery dots, the number of samples per condition is blah blah blah. The summary data can be shown as a Violin plot reflecting data distribution, and an open circle representing the median of the data. So if I switch here the stuff, if I say I want a box plot, you see that the description here is changed, right? And this is actually save us a lot of time, even on how the notches of the confidence interval are calculated. Okay, and again we can change more stuff here, and the description itself would be changed, right? Good. Now by clicking any of these buttons, we will get the data from it, the image from it, I'm sorry. But we can also see the data summary of those statistics that we calculated. So here it shows by default the amount, the mean, the standard deviation, and the confidence interval, but I would actually say that this is better to show all of them because we never know when statistics can be needed. And as the amount of digits past the comma are used, I would say at least 4, and if we want to be really picky, we can use 8. It would be very nice if we can actually put this in scientific notation, but it's okay, we can actually change it later in R or Excel. But here we can have again exported as a CSV, as an Excel file, for instance, or a PDF. I'm going to download the Excel just to show it to you guys. So this is how it would look, and as I said, here we can change how the data is displayed, and we can just put it as scientific notation, like that. Okay, nice. We also have the about of the program that we can see here: the source, the credits, the background information, and etc.